So this continues the first meetings with Dick Scruggs, which have somewhat been a cliche in some of the press that was covered in the after the famous Derby Day disclosure from the New York Times. Nevertheless, I'm continuing with that train of thought because this is an oral history, and it's my oral history as I saw it. So I guess I'll have my way. I don't know. Questions?
So continuing on the issue about two lawsuits, um, when does Don Barrett break Judge Wine's order, and when does Scruggs?
In fact, I didn't know until years later, and back in 2005 maybe, I saw an article about Don Barrett, and Don Barrett discloses that he's Mr. Butts, and Don Barrett discloses that he's been pretty much a traitor to me, and Don Barrett discloses that having sent the documents to Stanton Glantz, and I don't know if he had a little coaching on the side because by then, it was common practice for people like Richard Denard and people who had some experience in tobacco litigation to figure out ways. I'm not saying it was Richard Denard, but certainly he was a player in that whole manifest program to get the documents out any way he could. And maybe that is the truth. I don't know. On the other hand, it could have been anybody with a sense of who's the player. Where do we analyze this? But with Don Barrett, I had a lot of knowledge because it was concentrated in the very first part. When you get the documents, you're supposed to put them in the vault. There was a bank vault. That bank vault is my bank vault. This was the agreement. And I'm working on my book. When I say, if anything I say, it's going to be through the process of custodial possession, and I have the custody. And if anybody is going to get into that room, and it's obviously the case, from the very moment of landing that aircraft, there was a copy program going on in the bank building. And so Barrett, I'm sure, sometime in April, May, early part of May, certainly before May the 5th, I had a pretty good handle on breaking Judge Wine's order, and I'm sure he saw everything, but I can't really say what he saw because I didn't really see Barrett. I only saw Scruggs and Bozeman and an occasional person who was in charge of the bank vault. And it was presented to me that I had an office, I had a bank vault, and inside the bank vault were all my hearings that I had collected over the years, everything that I had collected. There were thousands of documents. More than anything else, it was basically for the book. And if things were going to change, I had custody of it. So Barrett broke the order. I later found out years after, my confidence as well, Don Barrett. Certainly that doesn't matter to you, but the reality was nothing they said was true. Nothing they did was true. Nothing they could be relied on was reliable. And so in the distinction of in the middle of peril and not knowing it, at the time I was. And little did I know that this is not a vainglorious attempt to win somebody's heart and mind. This was an attempt for people to be educated, to be given some information, but not necessarily directly through the documents. I had custody. They were in the vault. The vault was locked. And yet, on the very night, I later find out, and I do, very much later, find out they were making it was faster than any copy store that you could go to, because they were making numbers of copies of everything. And then finally, I would go in there and I would see, eventually, I would just see the boxes as they were. There were three documents, 3 boxes. So Barrett actually breaks the document, the order from Judge Wine. I don't think he's got a bit of guilt about that. And as long as it's in another state, it doesn't matter.
And what about Mike Moore and Hope?
Well, since Mike Moore was the Attorney General, his agent or his representative in the form of Vicky Scruggs was actually in the loop long before there was any hands-on activity with the documents. On the other hand, I'm sure that in the light of Dickie Scruggs' communication on a regular basis with Mike Moore knew that there was something there. Mike Moore actually broke in effect broke the order of Judge Wine, which becomes important as you look at the back of this and you look back on it. Wine can hold off everybody, but he can't hold hold back the state of Mississippi and the boys from Ole Miss. It's just not going to happen. In any case, I would say that Moore was certainly in the loop and was aware of everything that happened at this time. And it's not a material fact whether or not he knew everything, but he knew enough. And I recall someone saying that he carried around in his back pocket the Sylvester Stallone memo, which said Sylvester Stallone was going to get paid $500,000 for 5 movies, special placement using him, and he handed that around. I'm not questioning that rumor, but it was probably true. Now Scruggs is obviously in there because the moment Scruggs fired up his jet and headed toward and had, it's just like who touches this, who sees this. They're all involved in it, and they all became parts of depositions that I had. Many depositions when I was in the heat of every one of these depositions, and none of these sweet potato guys were going to have any deposition. Scruggs never had one. Motley never had one. None of the depositions were taken from Bozeman or anybody. Somehow the Holt group and the people in Mississippi had, Teflon wrapped around them. And even Nina was deposed in Texas, and I had a hell of a time trying to get some lawyers to give her some protection. I mean, Scruggs does not come in at a time, he doesn't realize who his friends are. In many cases, it infuriated me that Nina, who, without her help, could not have been delivering any kind of assistance to Mike Moore and to the Mississippi X-Reel case. So, where are we going? I still need to carry a little bit more here.
So now we're going to talk about what was legally correct and not.
Well, everything was incorrect.
So, first one would be, did Ellen Morrison Fox NYC, or you have knowledge of document dumping?
Yeah, I think the really sweeping question that you give me, did Alan Morrison and Fox NYC know about the document dumping? Document dumping was what Don Barrett did. He dumped the documents in the hands of Stanton Glantz. Stanton Glantz declares, "I don't know who sent this to me, but his name is Mr. Butts." And this was very early. So that's an example of document dumping. And when it was dumped in the hands of Motley, I don't know, but it was surely dumped there because he read my book, and the book was part of the documents that were dumping. As to what was dumped into, no, absolutely not. Nobody can be more loyal to the law, the rules, the ethics, and they had proven this. They had sucked it in and said, "Okay, we'll go somewhere else. We'll deal with this in another way." Alan Morrison was a true professional. You couldn't get him to move out of the circle of what was legally correct. He was just that way, obviously. He was a litigator. He was a profoundly, religiously dedicated person to his art as a lawyer. That's what we call a non-sneaky, not squeaky lawyer. And if we don't call him that, we just call him, he's perfectly in line with the law, and he's true to his profession. Fox, you couldn't move him. As far as I know, I still can't imagine how he would have seen anything. Why he would have done that, I don't know. And of course, we had a stronger suit in this. We were really concerned if we ever got hold of anything that was privileged under Judge Wine's order, we couldn't let it go. But here we all of a sudden have a Learjet going into the ozone layer and pulling out all sorts of things, and it didn't take them a minute to say, what law, what order, what year and a half of this in the newspapers and in the press did we not know? And it's just like they were anesthetized to the fact that there was anything that they had to stand up and prove. So this was Mississippi, Ole Miss. No doubt we're going to get it lawyering. And as I understand it from the times of the old grandfathering in of lawyers, this has always been the case. Not with every lawyer, but certainly there's been a mild case of a virus on the Gulf Coast, at least, and I think on one of our federal benches, he was retired uniquely as a specimen, one worthy of the office. That was down here on the Gulf Coast. So, what else?
Did Waxman have a legal right?
Henry
Yeah,
Waxman.
did he have a legal right to the documents?
Now, that pushes it a little bit further down the road. And yes, and this was the proviso that I imagine at so many times to have a legal representative from Congress, and that would be the obvious choice, Henry Waxman. Was Dickie Scruggs thinking about Henry Waxman at the time? Was Bozeman thinking about Henry Waxman at the time? I don't know. I had received questions after that, after the documents were in the room. I don't know whether they were just trial questions or what. But to me, the only legal way that this could be transferred would be through Henry Waxman and through his office as the man who was in Congress. And obviously that was to happen later on, but not right away. Not right away. Anyway, that's where we're going.